What happens when a favor at a nightclub turns into the moment my husband receives legal documents in a crowded lobby? Why did one playful gesture toward his boss become the spark for weeks of silent preparation I refuse to see? Can a wife still claim innocence when the public result lands in her hands? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Arielle Thorne, 34, and everyone says I ruined my own marriage over one stupid night at a club. I don't think that's fair. I wasn't sneaking around in some dark hotel room or doing anything people would call real cheating. I was just being nice, friendly, supportive. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. It started as a work thing. My husband's boss, Damien, was hosting this promotion party downtown, lights, music, the whole scene. Evan, my husband, hates that stuff. He said it would be loud and pointless. I said it would be good for his career. In my mind, I was helping him. I dress up, I smile, I talk to the right people, and he moves up. That's how life works now. When Damien asked if I could swing by the VIP area and keep the energy up, I didn't hear anything wrong in that. I thought, finally, someone sees what I bring to the table. I thought Evan would be grateful. Instead, he watched from the bar with that pale, shut-down face like I'd stabbed him in public. People swear they'd have walked out on me right then. He didn't. He did something else after. The night of Damien's promotion party, the apartment already felt too small for my mood. I had music playing from my phone, clothes all over the bed, makeup spread across the dresser. I wanted to look like the kind of woman people remember after one glance. Evan sat at the small desk in the corner, going through some reports on his laptop like it was any other Thursday. He asked how long this thing would last. I said not long if he kept acting bored. He asked if I was sure I had to go. I said it was important for his future and that I was doing this for him. That part was true in my head. His company was cutting people, promotions were slow, and Damien actually liked me. That mattered. When I stepped out of the bedroom in my dress, Evan just stared. It was fitted, bright, the kind of dress that makes a room look twice. He asked if it was a bit much for a work party. I said he should be grateful people would see he had a wife worth looking at. He went quiet after that. He always did when I pushed like that. I told myself his silence meant he had no real argument. On the way there in the car, he drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes straight ahead. I checked my reflection in the side mirror and my phone in my lap. Messages from my sister Serena popped up. She asked if Damien would be there. I said of course, and sent a selfie from the passenger seat. She said I looked like I was about to walk a red carpet and that Evan was lucky. I told her he did not act like it lately. Evan asked who I was smiling at. I said it was none of his business and reminded him I was coming for his sake. He gave this little nod and said he appreciated it. The way he said that word made it sound almost fake. I told myself he just did not know how to show excitement. The party was at a hotel conference room downtown. All glass walls and fake plants. People in suits milled around with small plates and cheap wine. Damien stood near the stage, laughing with a group, bright tie, loud voice, the kind of man who fills a space without trying. When he saw us, he lifted his arm and waved me over before Evan. Damien thanked me for helping with some scheduling last month and told Evan he was lucky to have a wife who understood networking. Evan said he was grateful I supported the company. His smile looked tight. I ignored that. I liked the way Damien's words sounded. They made me feel like I mattered more than a name on an invitation list. Later, after speeches and some boring slideshow, the music came on and lights dimmed. Damien clinked his glass and said anyone who wanted to keep the night going should meet at the club a few blocks away. People cheered. Evan leaned closer and said we could skip that part and go home. I said that leaving early would look rude and small, and that if he wanted to stay stuck in his position forever, fine, but I was not going to be the reason he missed a chance. He nodded again, slow, and said he did not want to argue. I told myself I had won. At the club, the sound hit us the moment we stepped inside. Bass from the floor, colored lights cutting across faces, bodies moving everywhere. It felt like breathing after holding my breath all week. Damien already had a small group in a corner area near the DJ. He waved again, and a security guy unhooked the rope for us. Evan hesitated. I said it was fine. Damien trusted us and walked in first. Inside the VIP space, people were laughing, leaning close, phones out. Damien told me I lit the room up and asked if I could help keep everyone moving, introduce some of the new people, that kind of thing. I said of course. This was the nice thing I still tell myself I did. I told Evan to relax and enjoy. He said he would just stay near the bar. I rolled my eyes and told the group he always liked the quiet corner. A couple of them laughed. It was not meant to be cruel, just true. I moved around the table, pouring drinks into waiting glasses, touching someone's shoulder to get their attention, throwing my head back when I laughed. I could feel eyes on me from outside the rope, people watching, maybe filming. The attention warmed me. Damien put a hand low on my back once when he leaned in so I could hear him over the music. I did not step away. I told myself it was normal in a place like that, just part of the energy. At one point, someone joked about who really ran the department, Damien or his secret assistant. They jerked their chin toward me. I said Damien made the decisions, but I made him look good. Damien laughed and said it was not wrong. Then I added that Evan would still be stuck in the same dull role if I did not drag him to these things. People laughed again, louder this time. Someone raised their phone to capture the moment, like it was a funny office story. I saw Evan at the edge of the crowd near the bar, his face pale in the club lights. He was watching, jaw tight, one hand around a glass he barely touched. For a second, I felt a small pinch of guilt. Then I pushed it away. I told myself he could join us if he wanted. Nobody was stopping him. If he chose to stand alone, that was on him. Damien asked why Evan was not dancing. I said Evan did not know how to have fun in public, and that he needed a manual. The circle burst into laughter. Even a couple of Evan's co-workers who knew him joined in. I told myself they were laughing with us, not at him. In the back of my mind, I knew that was not fully true. A girl from accounting lifted her phone and said she had to post this, that people needed to see the real power couple of the company. She angled it so Damien and I were in the frame, with Evan blurred in the background. I leaned into Damien, lifted my glass and smiled wide. The flash went off. I felt important. When the track changed to something slower, Damien moved closer again and asked, in a low voice, if Evan was okay. I said he was just touchy, and that he would get over it like he always did. Damien nodded and stepped back as if to show he was not trying to start trouble. I stored that in my mind as proof that nothing bad was happening. If he was respectful, then I was safe, right? After a while, Evan came over to the edge of the VIP space. He asked quietly if I was ready to go home. I said everyone had just started to loosen up, and that leaving now would be rude. He said he had an early start tomorrow. I told him he could go if he wanted, but I would stay a bit longer and maybe come home with a rideshare. His expression shifted. He said he did not like that idea. I shrugged and told him he was being controlling in front of his boss. Two people near us heard that and glanced over. One of them raised their eyebrows like they were watching a show. I kind of liked it. It made me feel powerful, like I was the main character in the room. Evan did not argue. He just said he would wait by the bar and walked away. That calm walk made me more annoyed than any shout could have. I told myself he was trying to make me feel guilty on purpose, and I refused to give him that win. We finally left close to closing time. Outside, the air was cool and smelled like street food and spilled drinks. My feet hurt, my voice was hoarse, but my head buzzed with the idea that I had done something smart for our future. Evan unlocked the car without speaking. The ride was quiet except for the hum of the tires on the road. He asked in this flat tone if I realized how I had spoken about him in front of everyone. I said people knew it was a joke and that he should be grateful his boss thought I was fun. He said joking and disrespect were not the same thing. I said he was being dramatic and that nobody would even remember in the morning. When we got home, he hung his jacket in the hall and went straight to the small desk. His phone lit up on the surface, showing a calendar reminder for the next day. It just said, meeting, personal at 9:30. I asked if everything was okay. He said it was fine, just something he needed to take care of. I did not ask what. In the kitchen, I poured myself water and heard the soft click of a drawer closing near his desk. When I glanced over, his laptop was already shut, papers stacked too neatly beside it. It looked strange, like he was suddenly very organized. I chalked it up to stress from work. Before bed, I tried to make light of it. I told him he should learn to enjoy having a wife people notice. He said he had noticed enough for one night and turned off his bedside lamp without another word. I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, still telling myself I had done something good for us, even as his silence spread across the room like a wall I could not see through. The next morning, I woke up with my head pounding and my phone buzzing. Evan's side of the bed was already cold. The bathroom door was open, lights off. He had left before I even opened my eyes. That annoyed me. I felt like he was trying to make some quiet point without actually saying anything. In the kitchen, 2 mugs sat on the counter. His was rinsed clean and upside down on the drying mat. Mine was empty, still stained with old coffee from yesterday. It looked like some kind of picture, neat and finished on one side, forgotten on the other. I rolled my eyes and grabbed my phone. Notifications filled the screen. Tags, messages, new followers. The girl from accounting had posted the photo from the club, the one with me and Damien front and center, and Evan blurred at the edge. Her caption said it was the real power behind the department. People were commenting that we looked like a team, that I seemed like the life of the party. I zoomed in on myself. Hair just right, smile wide, dress glowing in the lights. I looked good. Successful. Important. Damien had commented under it that I kept the night running. That part made my chest warm. I screenshotted it before the feeling faded. Serena had sent a voice note, but I ignored it and clicked into the picture again. Evan's expression in the background looked worse now that I was sober. Pale, jaw tight, eyes on us. I told myself the camera just caught a bad second. People love to read drama into still shots. On the fridge, a small square on the paper calendar caught my eye. Evan's handwriting, small and neat, downtown 11:40. No other details, just that. I frowned for a second, then shrugged. Probably some boring work errand. It was not my job to track his appointments. When I finally played Serena's message, she sounded excited. She said the photo was wild and asked if Damien was always that close. She wanted all the details. I typed back that Damien respected me, that someone had to pull Evan up. She sent laughing emojis and said Evan did not deserve me if he could not handle a little fun. By afternoon, clips from the party were all over our office chat. One short video showed me leaning into Damien, laughing, saying something about making him look good. My co-workers dropped comments about my energy. No one said anything pure negative, just a few jokes about my husband looking stiff. I pretended it did not bother me. If he wanted a different image, he could have joined in. Later that week, my friend Leah suggested drinks on a rooftop bar not far from Damien's building. She said we all needed to decompress and that she wanted to hear the full story. I invited Evan, mostly to show I was not hiding anything. He said he might come after he finished some things. His tone was polite, nothing more. When I got home from work that day, Evan was at the small desk again. His laptop screen showed a spreadsheet with date columns and words I could not read from the door. There was a sticky note beside it that just said, "Bring forms." Another folder on the shelf behind him was labeled, "Household." We had never labeled anything before. I asked when he turned into a filing cabinet. He said he was just trying to keep things in order. I laughed and told him he was acting like an old man. He did not smile. He only said he would be out for a bit the next morning and that I did not have to wait up. I told him I had my own plans anyway. The rooftop bar was busy when I arrived. String lights overhead, soft music, people taking photos with the skyline behind them. Serena was already there at a small table with Leah and two of Evan's co-workers, the ones who had laughed at the club. There was also a skinny teenage boy at the end of the table, earbuds hanging around his neck. Serena said he was Liam, our nephew, and that he was just hanging around for a bit until his dad picked him up. They all wanted to hear about the night. I told them most of it, leaving out that small pinch in my chest when I saw Evan's face. I focused on how Damien praised me, how everyone cheered, how I saved the party. I said Evan had stood by the bar like a statue and acted like a chaperone. One of Evan's co-workers asked if he was okay afterward. I said he had sulked in the car and tried to give me a lecture about respect. I added that he was acting like I had cheated just because I did my job. The table laughed. Serena said some men could not handle a woman who shines. I noticed Liam looking at his drink instead of laughing. He picked at the label on his soda bottle, shoulders a little hunched. For a second, I wondered if he felt bad for his uncle. Then I told myself he was a kid and did not understand adult stuff. Leah pulled out her phone and opened the club picture again. She said Damien and I really did look like the ones running the show. She joked that Evan should be sending me flowers for boosting his image. I laughed and said I agreed. Then I said he would probably complain they were the wrong flowers anyway. Someone asked if Damien minded the jokes. I said Damien understood it was all harmless, and at least he was not boring. I made sure to say that loud enough for the co-workers to hear. They exchanged a quick look, then laughed again. It felt like control, like I was shaping the story how I wanted. Halfway through the night, Evan showed up. He walked over in a clean shirt, still in work pants, eyes tired but calm. He greeted everyone, even Serena, then rested his hand lightly on the back of my chair. The touch felt careful, not warm. He asked how long we had been there. I said long enough to have a good time, which he would know if he had come earlier. He said he had been busy. I asked if it was with that personal meeting from his calendar. He just said some things needed his attention. We ordered another round. When the drinks arrived, Serena raised her glass and said we should toast to Damien's promotion and to the woman who made it possible. She nodded toward me. Everyone lifted their glasses. Evan hesitated a second, then raised his too. I chose not to see that pause. Leah said she had told people at work that I was basically a secret manager. She laughed and said Damien relied on me more than anyone. I leaned back in my chair and said I did not mind being the real power behind the scenes. Then I added that if I waited for Evan to build relationships, we would still be at the kids' table. The co-workers laughed loud at that one. One of them joked that maybe Damien should promote me instead. Serena clapped her hands and said she agreed. I saw Liam's face go stiff. He stared at the table now, lips pressed together. It bothered me for a second, then I looked away. Evan said calmly that he did not like being talked about as if he was useless. He said it in a low voice, but I heard the edge. I told him everyone knew I was kidding, and that he needed to stop taking things so personally. I said if he wanted to be seen as strong, he should stop acting fragile. That word felt satisfying when it left my mouth. Maris called during a lull in the conversation. I stepped aside to answer. She asked how we were doing. Her voice sounded careful. She said she had seen a photo from the party and that Evan had looked uncomfortable. I told her he always looked that way in crowds and that she was reading too much into it. She asked if I had any idea how some of my comments could sound, especially in front of his co-workers. She said respect in public mattered. I told her she was being dramatic and that this was not the old days. I said modern couples could joke. She fell quiet for a moment, then said she hoped I knew what I was doing. I ended the call before she could say more. Back at the table, Evan had moved his chair slightly back from mine. He sat with his drink in his hand, listening while the others talked about weekend plans. The wind ruffled his hair. The city lights reflected in his glass. He looked distant, like he was in another room. Leah nudged me and whispered that he seemed mad. I said he always looked like that, and that he would cool off. I tossed my hair and leaned forward, telling a funny story about Damien mixing up emails and how I had to fix it. I made sure to say that if I stopped paying attention, the whole office would fall apart. At some point, one of the co-workers showed us a new video clip from the club that someone had posted. In it, Damien had his arm behind my chair while I talked, his fingers almost touching my shoulder. Evan's face appeared in the background again, watching. The person filming panned past him and focused on us. Serena laughed and said the camera knew who the star was. The others agreed. I felt Evan's eyes on the side of my face, but I did not turn. He set his glass down slowly on the table. It was still almost full. He told the group he had an early morning and would head out. Someone asked if everything was okay. He said he was fine, just tired. I started to tell him he should stay, that we were just getting started, but he had already pushed his chair in. He rested one hand on the back of my seat for a second, like he was going to say something else. Then he dropped it, gave a small polite nod to the table, and walked toward the stairs that led down from the rooftop. His drink sat there sweating in the warm night air, untouched. I watched him go and told myself he was being dramatic on purpose, just so people would feel sorry for him. The day after the rooftop bar, the office felt extra bright. Sun poured through the huge windows, bouncing off glass walls and computer screens. People were already whispering when I walked in. I could tell it was about me before anyone said a word. You feel that kind of thing. At my desk, I opened my laptop and saw the internal chat blowing up. Someone had dropped a short clip from the club. It was the part where I leaned closer to Damien and shouted something in his ear, then threw my head back laughing. You could see his hand on the chair behind me, my dress, the lights. In the corner, just for a second, Evan appeared, watching from the bar. The comments were a mix of jokes and praise. People said I was the real morale officer. Someone wrote that Damien owed me dinner for making him look good. One person added a little line about my husband not looking thrilled. The laughing emojis under that one stung a bit, but I told myself it was not about me. It was about him choosing to stand alone. Leah came over with her coffee and leaned on my cubicle wall. She said everyone was still talking about how confident I looked. She asked if Evan had cooled off. I told her he was still stuck in his quiet act and that he hated being the uncool one. She said some men did not know what to do when their wife shined brighter. That made me feel better. Damien walked past and paused at my desk. He thanked me again for handling the party. He said people were still impressed and that the energy I brought helped the team. Then, he asked if I could help with a small client mixer next week, something in a hotel lounge. I said yes before he even finished. He smiled and said he knew he could count on me. After he left, I checked my phone. Serena had sent more messages. She wanted an update on Evan. She said in one text that if he could not handle normal flirting, that was his issue. I replied that it was not even flirting, just vibe, and that he was acting like a hurt teenager. She told me to keep doing what worked and not let him drag me down. That evening, when I got home, the apartment felt strangely tidy. The shoes by the door were lined up. The mail sat in a neat stack on the entry table. On the small desk, Evan's laptop was open to another spreadsheet. This one had more lines than before. I could see columns labeled date, place, notes. Some rows already filled. I asked what he was working on. He said he was just trying to keep track of things. I said he sounded like a boring robot. He did not rise to it. He just saved the file and closed the screen. A small external drive sat next to his hand, one of those silver USB sticks with a date written on a piece of tape. I'd never seen him label anything with dates before. In the kitchen, I noticed the mugs again. His was on the far right side of the counter. Mine was on the far left, still with a ring of coffee inside. It was like he was drawing lines without saying so. I told myself he was trying to guilt-trip me. I refused to give it weight. Over dinner, I tried to talk about the upcoming client mixer. I said Damien trusted me with important events. Evan said it sounded like I would be busy. I said that was what adults did. They stayed busy. He looked at his plate and said he hoped I remembered what mattered. I said he made everything sound heavy when it was not. Later that week, we stopped at the supermarket together after work. It felt almost normal at first. We pushed the cart down the aisles, grabbed pasta, sauce, cereal. In the dairy aisle, one of his co-workers appeared with her boyfriend. She waved, then made this awkward little comment about seeing us online. I knew instantly what she meant. As we waited in the checkout line, a group of teenagers stood behind us, faces glued to their phones. Suddenly, I heard my own laugh coming from one of their speakers. I turned and saw the club clip playing on a cracked screen, my face bright, Damien's arm behind my chair. The teenager said his older sister worked at the same company and that the video was all over people's stories. He pointed at the screen and said that the guy in the background looked mad. Evan stiffened beside me. The boy did not realize who he was talking to. I laughed and said it was just a funny angle. Evan said nothing. The cashier glanced at the video too. I felt the eyes, the small circle of strangers watching our life like a show. On the drive home, Evan asked if I understood how that looked. I said people would get bored and move on to the next thing next week. He said that online things sometimes stayed. I told him he was acting like we lived in a tiny village, and that this was not some moral scandal. I said it was a party. He gripped the steering wheel tighter and said he guessed we saw it differently. At night, I could not sleep. I scrolled through my phone in the dark and saw new messages. One anonymous account had sent me the clip with the words, "poor husband," under it. I almost replied, but then I blocked them instead. People love to judge from the outside. They did not know what it felt like to be taken for granted for years. I got up to get water. On my way back to bed, I saw that the guest room door was half open. The blanket on the spare bed was smoothed out, but the pillow had a faint dent. A glass sat on the nightstand, half full. He had been sleeping there some nights again. He never said it directly, but the distance was obvious. The next morning, I heard a soft hum in the hallway while I was getting ready. When I stepped out, Evan was in the living room talking into his phone, voice low and careful. He stopped when he saw me. The screen showed a contact saved only as a small briefcase emoji. I asked who that was. He said it was personal. I said we were married, so his personal was my business. He said calmly that lately it did not feel that way. He left soon after, taking his laptop bag and a slim black folder labeled bank. Another label on the shelf now read, utilities. The neatness made my skin crawl. It felt like he was turning our life into a set of files. At work that day, I tried to shake it off. During lunch, I went with Leah and two others to a coffee shop near Evan's building. The place was crowded with office people and students. As we waited for our drinks, Leah asked if Evan had forgiven me yet. I said there was nothing to forgive, and that he was sulking because I made him look slow. One of the others said she had heard from someone on his floor that he had become extra serious lately. No small talk, no jokes, just work. They said it like it was a problem. I shrugged and said maybe that was what he needed to finally move up, that my chaos was actually helping him. They laughed. Through the window, I saw him across the street for a moment, coming out of his building with a woman in a dark blazer. She held a folder, and they talked briefly. Then she left in the opposite direction, while he checked his phone. He did not see me. I watched him tap the screen, and then slip the phone into his pocket with a slow, sure movement. Back at the office, Damien stopped by my desk again. He asked how things were at home in this knowing tone. I told him Evan was processing, and rolling out his silent punishment. Damien said he did not want to cause trouble and that he respected boundaries. I said it was not his fault if my husband could not handle normal workplace celebrations. He still looked uneasy. Later, a message popped up from a co-worker who sometimes hung around the gossip crowd. She sent me a screenshot of a small private chat where two people from Evan's team talked about the rooftop jokes. One wrote that he felt bad for Evan. The other answered that Evan's wife seemed harsh and that they hoped it did not affect his work. My face went hot reading that. Harsh. They did not know anything about what I did for Evan, about the late nights, the pressure, the boring routines. I sent the screenshot straight to Serena. I said people were turning on me without hearing my side. She replied that this was why women needed to protect themselves and not rely on men's workplaces for validation. That night, when I came home, the apartment was quiet again. Evan was at the desk with his headphones on. The soft beep of his phone sounded as I walked in, like he had ended a call or a recording. He slipped it into his pocket quickly. The laptop screen showed his email. I caught a subject line before he clicked away. Follow up. I dropped my bag a little harder than needed. He took off the headphones and asked how my day was. I told him people were overreacting to things they did not understand. I said his coworkers were turning me into a villain. He said slowly that people often reacted to what they saw and heard. I snapped that if he defended them over me, that said a lot. He looked at me for a long moment, then turned back to the screen. I asked if he was just going to sit there and pretend everything was normal. He said nothing was normal, and that was exactly why he was keeping track. Those words stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. I went to the balcony with my phone and posted a picture from the office. Me in a blazer, coffee in hand, caption about handling business while some people stay silent. The likes came quickly. Comments called me strong, independent, unstoppable. I soaked them in, let them cover the nagging feeling that something under my feet was shifting, something I could not quite see but refused to take seriously. Maris was the one who suggested the family dinner. She said our schedules had been crazy and that we all needed to sit down together like before. I knew what she really meant. She wanted to check on her son without saying it. Still, I agreed. I thought it would be a good chance to prove things were fine and maybe fix my image a bit. The restaurant was one of those family places with red booths and loud music, kids' crayons on the tables, big photos of pasta on the walls. When we walked in, Evan held the door for me, like always, but his hand never touched my back. It was a small thing, but I noticed. At the long table, Maris sat near the middle. Liam slid into a seat across from me, hood half up. Serena came too, because of course she did, and took the chair beside me. Evan sat at the far end, near the aisle, like he wanted an escape route. I tried not to let it bother me. Menus rustled, water glasses clinked. Maris asked about work. I told her Damien trusted me with more events now, and that things were moving up. She nodded, then asked gently how Evan's position was going. He said it was steady, that he was focusing on different priorities lately. His eyes flicked toward me and back down. Serena jumped in and said at least one of us was getting recognition. She joked that not everyone could be the star of the company. I laughed along and said some people were just built for the spotlight. A couple of people smiled politely. Liam did not. I could feel the tension sitting there like a fifth plate. So I leaned into it. I said sometimes it felt like I was dragging our family name forward, while someone else preferred to hide in the corner. I said it lightly, like a joke, but the words hung heavy. Maris's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Evan set his glass down very carefully. He asked if I really wanted to talk about our marriage like that in front of everyone. I told him he was the one making it about our marriage. I said I was just stating facts, that I had been carrying the social load for years. Serena nodded like a backup singer. Liam stared at his napkin. His cheeks looked tight. For a second, I thought he might say something. Instead, he just pressed his lips together. Maris cleared her throat and said, Maybe we should change the subject. I told her everything was fine and that modern couples teased each other. I said people laughed at each other online all the time. Evan answered that the internet did not live in our house. I told him he sounded like an old man. Our server came to take orders. While everyone talked about pasta and salads, Evan pulled his phone out to check something. The screen lit up with a small alert I could see from my seat. Downtown, 11:40. Tomorrow's date. Another one of his personal errands. He clicked it away quickly and slid the phone back into his pocket. Food arrived. Plates crowded the table. The noise of other families filled the room. I decided to push just a little more. I told a story about the client mixer planning, how Damien had joked he would be lost without me. I said the company would probably fold if I walked out. People chuckled in that weak way you do when you are not sure if it is funny. Then I added that at least Damien understood my value, which was more than I could say for some people. I tilted my head toward Evan. That landed harder than I meant, but I did not walk it back. I waited for him to snap, to argue, to finally show some passion. He did not. He dabbed his mouth with his napkin and said calmly that he did understand my value. He said that was exactly why he was paying close attention now. The way he said now made my spine prickle. Serena rolled her eyes at him and told him he was being cryptic on purpose. She said if he had something to say, he should say it, not act like a mysterious movie character. He looked at her with that flat, polite expression he used on difficult clients. Then he turned back to his plate. Maris put her hand on my wrist and said softly that she thought I was being unfair. She said public comments could leave marks you could not erase. I pulled my hand back and said I was just tired of acting like everything was my fault. I said if Evan wanted respect, he should stop sulking and start supporting. Liam finally spoke, so quiet I almost missed it. He asked if we could please stop talking about this here. He said people at the other tables were looking. I glanced around and saw 2 older women at a nearby booth pretending not to listen. Heat rushed up my neck. Not from shame, just from being observed. I leaned toward Liam and told him we were fine, that grown-ups argued sometimes, and he did not have to worry. His eyes went to Evan. Evan just gave him a small, steady nod and said they would talk later. That annoyed me, like they had some secret team against me. The bill came. Before anyone could argue, Evan reached for it, slid his card in, and told the server quietly to split his part from the rest. It was such a clean little move. Maris looked at him, surprised. I asked why he was making things weird. He said he was just taking care of his own side. When the server walked away, he pushed his chair back and said he was heading out. I told him dinner was not over. He said for him it was. He stood, straightened his jacket, and told everyone it had been good to see them. His voice was respectful, distant, like he was closing a meeting. As he turned to go, his phone buzzed in his hand. For a second, the screen lit up again. A text preview flashed. Follow-up confirmed for tomorrow. He locked it before anyone else could read it and walked toward the door without looking back. The morning after that dinner, the apartment felt even quieter than usual. No clatter of dishes, no radio, just the faint hum of the fridge. Evan had already left. His side of the bed was smooth like no one had slept there. I checked my phone and found nothing from him. Only a bunch of likes on a photo I had almost forgotten I posted. It was a mirror shot from the office bathroom, blazer and red lipstick, caption about carrying the team, while some people stay moody. The comments called me fierce and unstoppable. I let myself smile. At least someone saw me. In the kitchen, the mugs were farther apart than usual. His on one corner, spotless. Mine shoved near the sink with a thin line of dried coffee. A folded grocery list lay on the counter. At the bottom, in his neat writing, he'd added, paper drop. I had no idea what that meant. I crumpled the list and tossed it in the trash. At work, Damien stopped by my desk and asked if I was still okay to help with the client mixer. I said, of course. He looked uneasy, then said he'd seen some of the comments on the rooftop clip and hoped things weren't tense at home. I laughed and told him not to worry, that Evan just needed time to get over himself. Damien nodded slowly and changed the topic. Later that day, I posted a short video from the mixer planning session. It was just me arranging name tags and joking with another coworker, but I added a caption about doing the real work while the quiet ones stay in the shadows. I didn't tag Evan, obviously, but it wasn't hard to guess who I meant. Serena replied within minutes, calling me a queen and telling me not to let anyone dim my shine. I screenshotted that and saved it, like proof. When I got home that night, Evan was at the desk again. The lamp cast a sharp circle of light over the surface. His laptop screen showed a folder window with clean little branches. Archive A, Archive B. A single USB drive sat next to it, labeled only with a date from 2 months ago. The shredder in the corner had a small pile of fresh strips beside it. I asked if he'd taken up some new hobby. He said he was just organizing. I told him he was acting like a detective in a cheap show. He closed the laptop and said calmly that he preferred things clear, that clarity helped him make decisions. The way he said decisions made my stomach twist. We barely talked over dinner. I tried to complain about people judging me from that club video. I said everyone was acting like I'd done some huge betrayal when all I'd done was dance and pour drinks. He listened, chewing slowly, then asked if I ever thought about what it felt like to be the person in the background of the joke. I told him if he didn't want to look bad, he should stop acting so weak. He didn't react. He just took his plate to the sink, rinsed it carefully, and set it on the opposite side from mine. Later, he asked if I wanted to walk down by the river. The invitation surprised me. I thought maybe he was finally ready to talk like an adult. The air outside was cool, the path lined with lamps and couples. We sat on a bench overlooking the water, city lights shivering on the surface. For a while, neither of us said anything. I kept waiting for him to blow up, to list every small thing I'd done wrong. Instead, he just watched the water. Finally, I snapped and asked if he planned to stay in this sulking act forever. He said he wasn't sulking. He said he'd already moved past anger, that now he was just making plans. I laughed and told him he sounded ridiculous, like he thought he was some mastermind. He turned to me then, face calm, eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen before. He said he understood clearly now how I saw him and our marriage, and that he was done arguing about it. I asked what that was supposed to mean. He looked back at the river and said, very quietly, that from this point on, he would handle everything properly. I decided the best way to end the weird distance was to show up at his office like a supportive wife. In my head, it was simple. I would bring lunch, look good, remind everyone that we were still solid. People believe what they see. If they saw us together, the gossip would die. The office tower lobby was all glass and polished stone, with a security desk in the middle and potted trees by the windows. People moved in and out with badges and coffee cups. I stood near a column with the takeout bag in my hand, rehearsing something light to say about busy schedules and silly fights. The elevator doors opened, and I saw him step out. He wore the same work jacket as always, but he looked sharper, like every piece of him was in the right place. Beside him walked a woman in a navy blazer with an HR badge, and a man I did not know holding a slim folder. Maris sat on a nearby bench, purse in her lap, hands folded too neatly. That part threw me. Evan saw me almost at once. He did not look surprised. The HR woman glanced between us. The man with the folder checked something on a clipboard. For a second, the scene felt unreal, like a staged photo. I walked toward Evan with a smile anyway. I said I had come to take him to lunch, that we needed to stop dragging drama out. He answered that he already had a scheduled meeting. His tone was polite, flat. I told him he could reschedule, that we were not strangers. The man with the folder stepped slightly forward. The HR woman said she was there as a witness for a formal delivery. My stomach dropped at that word. Formal. The man asked my name. full and clear. When I nodded, he placed the folder in my hands. He said it was service of documents and that I had now been officially notified. For a second, I just stared. Around us, people slowed without fully stopping. Badges flashed, footsteps softened. I told Evan this was insane, that he did not need to make a public show. He said quietly that he had chosen a public place for a reason, so there would be no confusion about what was happening. I opened the folder with stiff fingers. The first page had both our names printed in heavy letters. Phrases jumped out in short lines: petition for legal separation, temporary financial orders, protection of personal accounts, clear record of public incidents. At the bottom, I saw references to dates and places I recognized. The club, the rooftop, the restaurant, neat lists, turned into paragraphs. I said he could not be serious, that couples argued and moved on. He answered that he had already moved on, just not in the way I expected. The HR woman watched my face without speaking. Maris sat very still on the bench, eyes shiny but dry. I flipped to another page and saw a section about social conduct and reputational harm, tied to specific times. Every joke I had made now sat there as evidence. There was also a note about shared accounts being frozen in a controlled way until things were decided. Words like interim and order pressed against my eyes. The takeout bag slipped from my other hand and hit the floor, boxes thudding inside. Sauce leaked through the paper and spread over the shiny tile. People in the lobby stepped around it, careful not to stain their shoes, while I stood there clutching the folder that made everything suddenly, completely real.